Okay, Warcraft 2016. On this episode of Rotten Reviews, I'm going to take a look at something that, well, I was hoping it would be good, and I was very much disappointed. Warcraft 2016 has a 28% on the tomato meter and a 76% on the audience score. Well, I do not agree with that audience score. In fact, I'm going to be calling this a contrary episode of Rotten Reviews, and that means I'm going to disagree completely and say this film deserves to be rotten on Rotten Tomatoes. It is rotten in my opinion. It is another failed video game adaptation, and there are so many of those out there. And in 2016, you had more than one. You also had the Michael Fassbender Assassin's Creed rotten affair, and this one is not much better in my opinion. And I'll say that I am a fan of Warcraft. I played the original game back in 1994. I played the sequels. I also subscribed to and played World of Warcraft from its beginning until the end of the content of Wrath of the Lich King, and so I know quite a lot about it. I've enjoyed a lot of that content. And I can say that even from a video game point of view, as a fan of World of Warcraft and Warcraft in general, this movie is quite disappointing. This movie, I'm not going to go into the plot details beyond just saying that the orcs, this film actually, it doesn't claim to be a representation of World of Warcraft. It claims to be an adaptation of the 1994 original Warcraft game. And in the plot, very simply, the plot is that orcs, they flee their world and come to Azeroth. They have not encountered humans before or any of the other races in Azeroth, and they come through a portal into Azeroth, and their goal is to take over Azeroth by bringing the Horde from their world. Now, the funny part about that is that this film actually mixes in elements that are to be found in the Burning Crusade, and certainly some major elements that were not found in Warcraft until the expansion known as Wrath of the Lich King came out. And I don't know, that's acceptable, I guess, in a film adaptation. It's not a crime. It's not why this film is rotten. In my opinion, this film is rotten simply because it wasted all of its exciting CGI battles on just a boring story. They picked like perhaps the most boring story to tell out of the Warcraft universe. They should have probably made it a World of Warcraft adaptation. They would have found a lot more material there to work with. This is just a flat-out disappointment. It's a cookie-cutter plot, and I say cookie-cutter because it's very much the characters are cookie-cutter characters. Even from somebody that knows a lot about the lore of World of Warcraft and Warcraft, all the characters presented in this were very cardboard. Yes, they visually looked like their video game counterparts. For the most part, that was accurate, maybe too accurate, but there was nothing, there was no depth to it. You felt nothing for these characters. You didn't sympathize with them. You had your king of Stormwind, of Azeroth. You had your characters that were orcs, that were basically straight up orcs out of World of Warcraft. But none of these characters, including this Guardian character, who was the magic user, the protector of Azeroth, as it were. None of these characters, although they are beautiful to witness doing their magic and etc., none of them have any depth. None of them have anything going on that I was remotely interested in. And for the most part, I didn't know what the hell was going on at points in this movie. And I'm saying that as not only just a general normie audience film goer, but also as somebody that knows a lot about Warcraft. You know, the 94 game is a long time ago, and even by 2016 standards, 1994, that's a long time ago, and that's why I say it would have been better if they had just based this on World of Warcraft and forgotten about all this stuff from way back in the day, back in the lore, because even as a World of Warcraft player, I don't recall the stuff from '94. It's very much forgotten to me. I remember a few details, but this movie treated the '94 lore like it was just yesterday. And, you know, a lot of the people that watched this film in the theaters in 2016, the target audience for this, they never played the original Warcraft game from '94 or its sequels, for example, Frozen Throne. They never played that stuff. They're just straight up WoW players. They're World of Warcraft players. They shouldn't have gone back there. They should have just made this a straight up WoW adaptation. But in any case, it's way too late for that. Let's get right into the audience reviews. I can hardly believe this has 76%. I want to understand why this isn't rotten on the audience reviews, but I guess we just have enough fanboys that were just desperate to see a video game adaptation succeed, and so they voted this up. In any case, this is an episode of Rotten Reviews, so I'm not going to entertain 4- and 5-star reviews. I'm going to look at 3-star and only, 3-star and below reviews only. So you may see some of these scroll by, but I'm not going to read them or dwell on them. We've got a whole page of them right off the bat, but we finally have one at the very bottom of the first page of audience reviews, 3 stars, from November 30, 2019. Well, it's now January of 2020, so this is a couple of months old, but it's still relevant. 3 stars. A leader without honor cannot control the army. The movie, the main idea was that the leader without honor could destroy his army and people following him, since he does not respect everyone who follows him. The movie does show it well. I would not say that the movie was great. However, I think it was not so bad. I would like to see continuation because for me, the movie was not finished. The movie had several drawbacks, such as one of the main characters from the movie died. Well, didn't learn a whole lot there. Obviously, it's a World of Warcraft fanboy, but he didn't give us much detail to go on why he only gave it 3 stars versus all the other fanboys that gave it 4 and 5. He said it had problems, but only said that that was because one of the main characters died. Well, my main problem with this is just that it doesn't go anywhere. We see characters doing what they're doing, but you're not left with anything major that's happened at the end of this versus what you saw at the beginning. It's a very shallow story plot-wise, and there's really no theme here, despite this reviewer claiming that there is some kind of theme about honor. No, it's too surface level. There's really no theme here. The plot doesn't move anywhere in this. You're just left at the end of this film wondering what the point of it was, and obviously the point of it was to create a franchise of sorts, and they just picked the complete wrong story to start the franchise from. They should have gone with a World of Warcraft storyline, and obviously it failed because we haven't gotten another one of these movies, and it's been nearly 4 years now, and I'm glad. I don't want to see another one of these. I really don't. It had some nice visuals, and although those visuals from 2016, the CGI has aged rather poorly. It kind of resembles like a cosplayer version of World of Warcraft. Surface level, it's very shiny, very clean, very pretty, but it doesn't look real. Even the overhead shots of the battles, they look cartoonish. They look like something from a video game, sure, but they just don't look real and believable to me. And I'm a fan of World of Warcraft, but I don't really want to see a video game. I want to see a film. Now, as far as this movie having another major flaw, well, orcs aren't exactly pretty people. They're these brutish, big, giant, muscled creatures, and the film was accurate to that. The way they looked in this film was the way the orcs actually look like in World of Warcraft. However, the character of Paula Patton, the character that she plays, it is like a orc-human hybrid character, and of course, being Paula Patton is the person playing this character, it has to be very sexy, and it has to be that she's involved in a romance with one of the human characters, and basically she's just a green girl could have been taken out of an episode of Star Trek. And she's green. She has green paint on, and she has like prosthetic teeth. Like they almost look like plastic teeth that are in her mouth while she's talking. And at points, you can see the makeup has rubbed off from her body, and you can see her normal skin tone on her face and arms and etc. in different parts of the film that they just didn't bother to touch up her makeup. So I'm thinking, well, wow, that's not really attention to detail. They really paid attention to a lot of detail as far as making the armor and everything look like it belonged there from World of Warcraft, made it accurate. As cosplay as it looked, it was accurate. But they didn't really pay attention to stuff like makeup. I don't know, it was a little off-putting to me because I know they needed some sexy romance character, but to make it a half orc, half human, it's just not believable because you look at all the other female orcs and they're just these brutish creatures, not sexual or attractive at all to a normal male audience goer. But then all of a sudden Paula Patton just sticks out like a sore thumb. She would have probably been better casted as some kind of elf, but as an orc, even a half orc, it just doesn't work for me. It's too convenient, too contrived. I know it's to appeal to 13-year-old fanboys. And again, that's a fail because why would a 13-year-old fanboy be into the 94 Warcraft games? He wouldn't be. He would be into World of Warcraft. And there's a lot of things going on in this film that I think it was aiming for an audience that was not of the correct time period. You're wanting to appeal to the bulk of Warcraft fans. Well, you're going to have to appeal to WoW, World of Warcraft, not the 94 game. Again, I'm 40-something. I'm in my late 40s, and I was, of the right age to be playing World of Warcraft back in 94. But this movie wasn't targeting people my age. It was targeting people much younger that would just be into World of Warcraft. Yet it had stuff that didn't belong here. It mixed things up. Things that didn't belong from together in one movie were put into this. I'm rambling a bit, so let's move on into some more reviews. We have a 2.5-star review, September 30, 2019. It was okay, but there were too many characters to follow, and none of them were developed particularly well. I was actually disappointed that the film wasn't more terrible. At least then it would have had camp value. Takes itself too seriously, even when its subject matter is ridiculous, and the battle scenes are all very generic. Shame, with the richness of the source material, that this was the best they could do. Yeah, there's a lot of dollar bills put into the CGI in the battles, but they show the battles in like the worst, least exciting way that you could show them. And yes, it sounds exciting to have these giant orc characters fighting armor-clad humans in a World of Warcraft setting. But they just picked all the worst ways to make this visually exciting. It's just not visually exciting. It's very boring. Yes, it's pretty. It's very expensive looking, but it's boring at the same time. And when you're not in battle, you're switching between a lot of locations that, if you're familiar with the World of Warcraft, you're going to know where these locations are, at least in the video game world. And that's fine, but as a regular audience goer that didn't play World of Warcraft, I can only imagine that they would be very confused about, number one, how big is this world? Number two, what are the rules? What's the structure of it? What's the politics going on? There's a lot of magical stuff shown. What are the rules to the magic? Where does the magic come from? What's the history on that? Etc., etc. Even having played World of Warcraft and played the original 94 game, a lot of this stuff I was disappointed that it wasn't set up better, fleshed out better, because I didn't know what the hell was going on at points. There was a character played by Glenn Close that just showed up out of nowhere and was inside some kind of black cube structure in some alternate reality, and she had a role in this. And early in the film, she showed up as a ghostly figure in a library. And I didn't know who the hell she was or what she was doing there or what the hell was going on, because I've played, like I said, I played World of Warcraft all the way from its beginning, opening release all the way until the end of Wrath of the Lich King. And I didn't know who she was or what the hell this black cube was that was in the floating city of Dalaran. It didn't make sense to me because, again, let me just say something about the floating city of Dalaran. Yeah, it's it's kind of portrayed like the way it is from the exterior. It looks like it does when it was put into World of Warcraft in the Wrath of the Lich King expansion. But it doesn't belong in the 94 game. And when they went into the city of Dalaran, it did not look the way it was supposed to look on the inside. Yes, the exterior did when you approached it riding a Gryphon, just like you approached it in the game riding a Gryphon. But just as somebody that knows what it's supposed to look like, it was a total fail on the interior. And there was this black cube in the center of it with some Glenn Close spiritual character inside of it. And what was that? What the hell was that? Because that wasn't not in the game when I played it. I had no idea what was going on, and there were other things that didn't belong. Like, well, not only did Dalaran, it should have been on the ground as a regular city, because at that point in the Warcraft lore, it had not become a floating city. But if you even hand wave that away, there's other problems. Like, for example, the Gryphons that you ride in World of Warcraft, they're single player mounts, whether it's your own personal mount or whether it's you paid a fee at a station and you rode one of these Gryphons between Stormwind and Ironforge. It's a single occupancy vehicle, so to speak. One rider can ride it at a time. You can't have another rider jump on the back of it with you like it's just a horse and you can get somebody on the back, or it's a motorcycle. Doesn't work like that. Single rider only. There were a lot of little things like that that didn't fit with the lore of the video game. But as a regular film goer, it also failed because it was just not exciting, and you had a lot of scenes where in Stormwind, the generals and the king were just standing around a big board game table just arguing with each other, and that was not exciting. Yeah, let's go on to some more audience reviews. I still don't understand how fanboys would rate this up high. I guess they just wanted to see a video game succeed and an adaptation succeed, and they were just determined to see this succeed, but they failed because, this made about $44.7 million at the box office, and it cost a lot more than that to make, so it was a complete flop. But let's move on. Half a star, September 19, 2019. Okay, so I have been trying to watch Warcraft this week. I have tried on 4 separate occasions to watch this film. I was by no means excited or looking forward to this film. I've never been a WoW fan, but I respect their legacy. Now to the movie. It is a very, very rare occasion I do not finish a movie. Even if it's downright terrible, I tough it out and finish it. Warcraft is one of those films I just can't finish. The effects are so bad, and the story I had zero interest in. The first 3 times I fell asleep all 3 times. I kind of sympathize with that viewer, and I don't say this is half a star. My star rating is 1.5 stars. 1.5 stars is what I give this, peaking out at 1.5 stars. And this reviewer's giving it half a star. I don't think it's quite that bad. There is some redeemable stuff in this. Like, for example, if you are a fan of World of Warcraft, it is interesting to see this stuff in film. It's not exciting. It's not done right, but it's interesting just to bring up old memories of when I played WoW and had a good time. So I give it 1.5 stars. Yeah, it is just like something that you can fall asleep to because the battle scenes are not exciting. In fact, let me just say that the end battle, the big battle at the end with your hero character and the villain, the whole movie spends its running time kind of hyping you up to that battle at the end. And when you finally get that battle, what happens? It's over in like less than 10 seconds. Boom, slam, over. And then that's it. And that was your payoff for sitting through this whole thing, 1 hour and 40 minutes. You sat through 1 hour and 30 minutes at least just to get to that one scene where in 10 seconds the hero defeats the bad guy and it's over. And you can tell they wanted to set this up to make you excited for other films, and they failed on that. Let's move on. Yeah, a lot of the battle scenes, they should have been epic, but they were just completely boring. A lot of CGI, and I will say the CGI doesn't age well. It's only been 4 years, not even 4 years, 3.5 years, and already the CGI doesn't age very well. That's pretty bad, but that's what happens when you go heavy on the CGI. A lot of times doesn't age well, and I'll say I didn't see this in the theaters. I didn't see this on home video release. Didn't see it at Redbox. I just saw it yesterday when this appeared on one of the channels on my DirecTV, and I said, wow, hey, I finally get to see this film. I forgot about it. And, well, now I know why I never saw it and why I forgot about it, because it's just as bad as Assassin's Creed, if not worse. 2.5 stars, August 25, 2019. Nice visuals, but overall a little long and drawn out and a weak ending. Yeah, it's not, you know why it feels long and drawn out? Because it just used its running time in the wrong way. It could have still done what it did basically the same way, but if it had chosen a different way to show the battles, if it had chosen a different way to characterize the characters, to put more substance into them, if it had just not left us with so many questions, and I'm talking just, like I said, I played WoW for years, and I had so many questions going, you know, as the running time increased, I was left with a lot of questions, like about what was exactly going on. It wasn't a long running time. 1 hour 40 minutes was fine, but it just didn't take advantage of that running time. It wasted a lot of it. 4 and 5 star reviews. I'm sorry, I just don't believe any of them. It's ridiculous. Scrolling through page after page of 4-star reviews. Let's go to my list. You know, at the beginning, it starts off with, like, I almost thought it was going to be like a romantic comedy between orc characters. That's the wrong way to start this. That's not what it was, but the first opening shot of this kind of told me that. It started with the very first opening shot of kind of like a battle that really didn't make a point between a human from Stormwind and an orc. And they had a small little battle that didn't have any backstory to it or anything. It just kind of showed the orc smashing his hammer over the the character from Stormwind, the fighter, and then it moved into the opening scene of the actual narration, where there's 2 orc characters laying there in their tent, and it looked like it was going to be a romantic comedy between them because the wife orc was pregnant, and they just kind of had some rom-com talk between them, and I was like, oh boy. As soon as that was like the opening scene of where the story was starting, I was just like, oh boy. Well, thankfully the whole movie wasn't like that. It didn't dwell on that, but it almost, yeah, it almost made me think this was going to go into a romantic comedy, and it just, that's the wrong way to start Warcraft. I mean, you know it's Warcraft, right? World of Warcraft, there's nothing about rom-com or sitcom dialogue in that. But let's move on. 1.5 stars. Warcraft feels like an endless video game introduction. You want to skip to start playing. Yeah, as somebody that's played World of Warcraft for a number of years, the cutscene stories that you get every time an expansion comes out in World of Warcraft, they're better than the stuff you saw in this film, and that's pretty pathetic. Obviously, the director didn't actually play World of Warcraft or research any of those cutscenes about the lore that goes on and whatnot, and obviously he didn't, because a lot of stuff, yes, it's accurate to World of Warcraft, the weapons, the armor, etc. It looks like it belongs in World of Warcraft. And I'll say Ironforge and Stormwind, they look exactly like they're supposed to. But the way things happen, the visuals, the storytelling, it does not feel like anything you saw in any of the cutscene material in the actual game World of Warcraft. So it's a complete fail. It's just boring. Like I said, even like a 30-second cutscene of, say, the Burning Crusade, or one of the Wrath of the Lich King expansions, you know, one of the minor expansions had a cutscene to go along with it telling you what's happened. And it was far more exciting than the stuff we saw in this movie. Complete fail. 1 star, April 1, 2019. What a terrible film. Thought I was watching a rip-off mashup, Lord of the Rings and Shrek. Yeah, it was kind of confusing to me too, even as a World of Warcraft player, that yes, the orcs did look a little bit like muscular versions of Shrek. Some of them were very green, and some of them were just kind of tanned. And that was a little weird, and I guess I forget a little bit of the World of Warcraft lore, but the ones that were green were regular orcs, and I guess the ones that were tan were supposed to be this Frost Wolf clan of orcs, which is fine, but as a regular film goer that wouldn't be into the video game, that might just want to see a fantasy movie, they were probably wondering why. Some of them were green and some of them weren't. And the half human, half orc Paula Patton character was green, certainly. But it was a little confusing, stuff like that. Just like the color of the magic. The film shows the audience that the blue type of magic is the good type of magic, and the green magic, which is called fel, is the bad kind. And as a World of Warcraft player, I recall that, fel was the green magic. The fel demons used this in the Burning Crusade expansion. And again, they're mixing stuff from different expansions together with the 94 material and calling it a 94 adaptation. They're calling it fel, the green magic, and yes, that's what it is. But even as a World of Warcraft player, it was a little bit confusing. And as a regular audience member that didn't know the lore, I can only imagine how they would just be wondering, what the fuck is going on here as they're looking at it, because obviously the green magic is evil, but how does it relate to the blue magic? Which one's stronger? Why does the green one corrupt the blue one when the guardian goes into the pool? There's a lot of stuff that if you weren't a World of Warcraft player, you're just going to be shaking your head going, what the fuck is going on? Because it's very surface level. Everything is very surface level. And even as a World of Warcraft player, about 30 to 40% of this, I also was wondering what the fuck was going on. So let's move on. 1.5 stars, March 20, 2019. Warcraft is harmless and the character designs and story stays true to the game, but that actually drags it way down in terms of story, character, and even atmosphere. Yeah, the atmosphere doesn't match the game at all. This feels like a straight up, like very clean, very bright, very shiny type of material. And World of Warcraft, it's not like that. It's not shiny, clean, and bright. The atmosphere in this film just fails the game, although from a cosplay point of view, it looks fantastic. It feels like people cosplaying World of Warcraft in a CGI environment. It doesn't feel like Warcraft or World of Warcraft. 1.5 stars, February 20, 2019. Not much war in this movie between Horde and Alliance, and the final scene battle of Lothar versus random orc never before in Mythos started and ended in about 6 seconds, and yet narrative needed Horde thought it was magnificently honorable. Spoiler, pumped up evil new orc from Fel Magic who killed Lothar's son dies from Lothar sliding under to sword his penis and then stabs him in the back. I think even Lothar's son at the moment of dying and seeking revenge might have been, again, like I said, 6 seconds, 10 seconds, the final battle the movie builds up to is over so quick you're wondering why they even had it. And also, I'll say something about the combat. In World of Warcraft, the combat is quite technical, and even with macros, it's quite technical. It's a very gear-centric game. So just from a video game point of view, this movie failed because it didn't show any difference in the weapons. Like, people were carrying hammers and swords and axes and whatnot, but they were just generic weapons, and there were no magic weapons, and there was no technical aspect to the combat, and that completely fails because in World of Warcraft it's a very technical geared game, and this just made it into a generic fantasy game and fantasy movie, and it's just very boring, even from a video game player's point of view. 2 stars, January 7, 2019. This movie had extremely odd pacing, just okay protagonists, which didn't really even look the part, and honestly, it didn't achieve anything that great through its CGI. In 10 years' time, it will have joined the ranks of Jar Jar Binks, visually speaking. Yes, I agree, it has aged very badly in just 3 to 4 years. It spends tons of money to make orcs out of CGI and then robs us of all the different factions within the ranks of humans, elven archers, dwarven gunners, etc., all of which could have added to the experience, especially if it was through practical effects. Yeah, everything is CGI. Everything is CGI except for the human actors. And yeah, it just looks like a CGI fest, and I agree it will age as badly as The Phantom Menace. It's just a matter of time. Now, some of it wasn't even good. Like, for example, the dwarves. Ironforge looked authentic to Ironforge. I recognized it interior and exterior. However, the dwarves looked very weird. They were completely CGI. Everything that wasn't human was completely CGI. It could have been cartoon character, and it's going to age really badly. There was no point to the elves. It was shown the elves were sitting at a table, kind of in a planning meeting at one scene or two, but elves and blood elves had no role in this. They were very much just in one scene, and that they had no role at all in the film. And the actors didn't work. Like the king was played by, I guess, Dominic Cooper. The king, he didn't feel like a king. He felt like Dominic Cooper cosplaying some role in a fantasy movie. It didn't feel authentic at all. And his sister, or his wife, she's played by the British half Ethiopian actress who also starred with Dominic Cooper in the Preacher series. And I really like her as an actress, but she had almost no role in this, and she didn't look right next to Dominic Cooper. I mean, wife or sister, she didn't look visually like she should be there with him. I don't know what they were thinking on casting her. It was just complete miscasting. Even the hero of the story, you know, the human fighter character that you're supposed to follow along that gets the battle at the end, he didn't. He just looked like a generic guy. He didn't bring anything to the table. I can't say his acting was bad, but he was just miscast. He was a nobody miscast in the role from my point of view, and he didn't work. He didn't bring anything to the table. Complete miscasting. I'll just say this movie was a complete miscasting in every regard. And I'm not going to say casting at all with regard to the orcs because they're completely CGI characters. They are just voiced CGI creations. Paula Patton, again, I think she was miscast. Too sexy. She had to ham it up a little bit too much. She overpowered her scenes. And again, it just felt too much like they just put green paint on her and put prosthetic teeth in her mouth, and it didn't work for me at all. And the contrived romance of her, no, no, no. So let's move on. 2.5 stars, January 3rd, 2019. Foreseeably, Warcraft's triteful plotline and boring CGI relegated into a not-so-magical movie experience. The film is nothing more than a boilerplate fantasy war adventure that hastily exploits the Warcraft universe to a mainstream audience, and it failed to do that. Below average action, below average thrills, one familiar faced mage, and forgettable everything else. This adventure is just another video game that has been high spun through Hollywood's rotary buffer. Yeah, everything about this is forgettable. I forgot the thing existed until it popped up on DirecTV a couple of days ago. Very forgettable. What else is on my list? I do have a small list of things that are wrong with this film. Of course I do. Yeah, even as a game player of the World of Warcraft game, I didn't know what was going on a lot of the time. Yeah, in the battles I was bored. Every battle I felt like it wasn't exciting. I saw a bunch of people battling, but it felt like cosplay battling, and I didn't feel invested in it whatsoever. Orc human romance doesn't work. Yes, I mentioned that. The orc battle for leadership, very stupid, very Saturday morning cartoon type of stuff. The plot of this basically felt like a Saturday morning cartoon. It was okay for little kids, but even in the World of Warcraft, this would have failed. It would have been derided and made fun of even back in the day, even back in 2006. It would have been pathetic. Like I said, even the most minor expansion from the Burning Crusade or Wrath of the Lich King was better than this, had a better story than this, no question about it. And yeah, the green makeup on Paula Patton, it's just, even right on her face when she's on close-up scenes, it rubbed off and they just left it like that. All they had to do was touch it up, but they just couldn't. Baby orc at the end. Yeah, at the end of this, there's like a little, kind of like a Moses-like scene where the orcs put their little baby orc on a raft made out of reeds. That's kind of like reeds and orcish-looking reeds. That I'll give them credit. They made it look like a raft in Agramar or some part of the orc-dominated World of Warcraft. Anyway, this orc is on a little raft floating down the river. and somebody finds him, and he kind of pops his head up and screams like an orc, and his big orc green ears flare out. And I don't know what the point of that was. Like, who was that supposed to be? It's just like almost like a little baby Yoda orc with teeth, and he screams at the camera at the end, and then it goes to black and then to the credits. And I'm like, what? What was the point of that? I was just like, okay, whatever. Don't know what that's supposed to be. I guess maybe, who knows, maybe Baby Orc was supposed to be the Baby Yoda from back in 2016. It didn't work. It just looked kind of funny. Like, it almost looked like that old Bat Boy from Weekly World News, where Bat Boy, it was like a green version of Bat Boy screaming at the camera at the end. And I guess I would have laughed at it if I had been drinking, but I was watching this movie completely sober, so no laughs to be found. And I didn't get any comedy in this film. They could have tried to put some comedy into it, but I didn't find any in there. This was completely serious, and if there was an attempt at comedy, I didn't even detect it, so it must have failed if it was in there. 2 stars, November 21, 2018. We're back, back 1 year plus in time. The orcs are great. The rest feels like there was a sale at Toys R Us. Yeah, you're watching these CGI orcs like battle each other, and it just wasn't exciting. I'm sorry. And it just felt like you knew watching this that this is going to be as bad as The Phantom Menace in another 10 years. It's going to look that bad. 4 and 5 star reviews, sorry. 3 stars, October 25, 2018. For the unfamiliar, it's a hot mess. For the initiated, a mediocre adaptation with structural issues. Fun nonetheless. Fun? No, it was too boring. Way too boring to be fun. I'm sorry. I appreciated that they made it look like the World of Warcraft in a lot of ways, and it did, but it was just boring. I didn't feel anything. No fun to be had. 1 star, October 20, 2018. Aborted 30 minutes in. Yeah, I sympathize with that. I could see that somebody that's not into World of Warcraft to begin with would just shut this off after less than 30 minutes, really. 2 stars, October 20, 2018. Warcraft makes a noble attempt to cram character depth into both sides of a cliched setup, but its questionable dialogue, front-loaded world building, and insipid exposition ensure that none of its key dramatic moments land with any meaningful punch. Yeah, I didn't care about anything. Maybe it would have succeeded if they had picked a side. I know World of Warcraft is, you pick your side. You're either with the Alliance or you're with the Horde. So this film, maybe it would have been more successful if it had picked a side, if it had picked Alliance and the orcs were considered just the straight up bad guys, or vice versa. It might have been more acceptable to a regular audience goer, because a regular audience goer doesn't know shit about World of Warcraft, so they're probably just wondering, who am I supposed to sympathize with, and how can you sympathize with both sides of a story like this? You really can't. So that's a big fail. But even as a video game player, none of the characters were realistic enough for me to get into them, so I couldn't pick a side either way. It's just a complete fail, a snooze fest. 2.5 stars, October 16, 2018. Wanted to hate it. I came away with a twinge for playing the game again. When are writers and producers going to realize you need a good story to go along with the effects? They just don't. Also in 2016, you have Assassin's Creed. Same kind of bad stuff in it. Not only was it bad for people that knew about Assassin's Creed, but it was just bad from a regular audience point of view. You just didn't know what the hell was going on. You didn't know who the good guys and bad guys were. You didn't know what you were supposed to be building up to. A complete fail. You just didn't know what the point of anything was. And in a lot of ways, this is very similar to Assassin's Creed. They were made during the same time period, and they're both rotten. 0.5 star, October 13, 2018. One of the worst movies I've seen in a while. I was honestly excited to watch it, but not only is it boring, but it's also depressing. I don't recommend it. Yeah, it doesn't give you any of the thrill that the World of Warcraft world does. You see the same settings, but you have no sense of the scale. You don't know how far apart they are, because You know, if you're a regular audience goer, you don't know what you're looking at all. Yes, you know that there's a place called Goldshire outside of Stormwind, but in the movie, it's quite a ways away. But in the video game, it's not. It's right outside the gates. There's a lot of stuff lost in translation, and I'll just bring up that the opening scenes where the orcs are invading Azeroth, well, it looks very much from my point of view like they were in Stranglethorn Vale, you know, the jungle area. And you know, the movie doesn't name where it is, so you have no idea how far away from Stormwind this is. There's no sense of scale. Even from the video game, I couldn't get a sense of scale, like how far things were apart from each other, because the movie is very wishy-washy in that regard. And the movie does show you this battle map and the characters. You see a lot of this stupid hexagonal, like D&D type battle map in the planning room in Stormwind with the king and etc. And it doesn't even give you a good idea of the world or what the scale of anything is. It's just a fail all the way around. Um, you can't have an epic movie if there's no scale to anything, right? I mean, even where you were battling the orcs between this giant chasm, I had an idea of where that was in the actual game of World of Warcraft, but the movie didn't tell me where it was, and it didn't show much travel to and fro. I had no sense of scale, so I couldn't get any epicness from it. You would get a lot better epic feel from playing World of Warcraft than you would get from this movie, guaranteed. 3 stars, September 3rd, 2018. The movie is fine at best, not great, not bad. It may please fans of the game, however. No, it doesn't. I'm sorry, but I'm kind of a fan of World of Warcraft, and it failed me completely. I found this movie to be very boring. Half a star, August 19, 2018, not English. 2.5 stars, August 14, a bit hammy, and a plot that doesn't translate well to the big screen. That's because they picked the wrong plot. World of Warcraft by itself, forget the game that came before it, has a lot of different story plots that could have been made into movies, but they just picked the flat out most surface level boring stuff they could and crammed it into a movie. This was a fail of the director, not of the game. The game would have translated well if it had been done better, but it wasn't. It's just another failed adaptation. 1.5 stars, August 2nd, 2018. Warcraft is a dreadfully boring film. It is about an orc horde invades the planet Azeroth using a magic portal where humans are dissenting orcs try to stop it. Travis Fimmel and Paula Patton give terrible performances. The script is badly written. Duncan Jones did a horrible job directing this movie. I was not impressed with this motion picture. Yeah, boring is just the cardinal sin here, all the way around. If I had to name one thing that this thing deserves to be rotten for, it's just that it's boring. 3 stars, Make Love, Not Warcraft. 2 stars, July 12, 2018. This is probably the nerdiest film I have ever seen, which I find endearing as somebody who is a fan of franchises that hold such a shamelessly niche appeal. And on that point, my biggest praise I can give this film is that the aesthetics are completely loyal to how the games look and feel. However, this and the fairly competent action direction don't make up for the rest of this film feeling so empty. It has the most basic of plot lines. The world building doesn't expand much beyond the occasional, you know, for a game that can be rightfully criticized for being empty in a lot of ways as an MMORPG, this film feels even emptier. This film feels like how a lot of the original lands of World of Warcraft felt after the expansions came out and all the players moved on to other more exciting lands. They leveled out of those areas, and you got these beautiful landscaped areas that were very empty of action or players and just had quest givers standing around. And that's what this whole film felt like. Like the worst, most boring night of playing World of Warcraft, where everybody's just standing around in Dalaran waiting for the next content to drop, and there's just not a whole lot of anything going on, and you're wondering why you're still subscribed to the goddamn game, and you just want to unsubscribe because it got boring. And yeah, this is more boring than any late stage expansion of World of Warcraft ever got, because at least in the game there was somebody to talk to. You're just sitting at I could imagine in the movie theater, you're just sitting there like, checking your watch to find out when it's going to end. 2.5 stars, June 20, 2018. Expected something that was the epitome of formulaic second-rate CGI cartoon movies. It's not that. It's actually a fair bit better than that and than I expected. I don't exactly believe you on that one. Let's move down. Let's check even another page. Well, more 4-star reviews. I'm sorry, I just can't get into that. 2 stars, visually spectacular, cerebrally dull. My 10-year-old loves stuff like this, but not actually thus. Yeah, maybe, see, that's the problem. This film is like designed to appeal to like a 10-year-old, but no 10-year-old would know anything about the 94 film or give a crap about it. Why didn't they set this in the World of Warcraft universe? Why didn't they use one of the many stories in World of Warcraft that would have worked better, been more exciting? I don't know why it was a complete fail. And again, it's like this movie was made by people that they knew a lot about mimicking aesthetics from things, but they didn't know shit about like capturing the feel of a video game and capturing audience members that don't know anything about it. And they didn't know how to capture people like me that knew a lot about it. It's a complete fail. Why it has 76 on the audience score, 76%. I'm thinking it's just because of the aesthetic. It is very accurate in a cosplay sort of way to what World of Warcraft looks like. And again, I say World of Warcraft, not the 94, because they mixed in straight up World of Warcraft stuff into this. So they can say it's the 94 game all they want, but it isn't. It's World of Warcraft. And 28% on the tomato meter. I'm surprised it's not single digits, how shallow all the characters are. I'm very much surprised. But 76% on the audience score. I would consider it fair. I'd feel a lot better personally if I had opened up this page and I had found like 45% on the audience score, because that's what I thought I was going to find when I went to this page. And I was shocked when I saw 76%. I can only imagine it's just the effort put into the aesthetics to make it accurate. But otherwise, if you're just looking for people cosplaying World of Warcraft, this is for you. If you're looking for an actual film that has an actual, story, that it's not boring, and you feel something at the end of this, then this is not the film for you. And I will see you on another episode of Rotten Reviews.